Thank you very much, Dr. Moore. Hello, and thank you in advance for your time tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to present the HC Math Department to you. And by way of introduction, my name is Bob Cole. I've been a member of the faculty since 2003. In July 2019, I was appointed as acting math supervisor and subsequently hired as supervisor in July of 2020. It's been my professional privilege to lead the department through rather extraordinary times, but I am driven by a deep passion and commitment to Hunterdon Central. I'm a proud parent of two fairly recent HC graduates, and like Mr. Panico, I'm also an alum. So tonight, I'm hoping to provide a chance to get to know us, a little bit about our curriculum, a review of our available data dashboards and our approach to using them, along with a quick tour of some ways we can support our students and provide intervention. The math department, by the numbers, is a department of 29 dedicated full-time faculty. There are 9 experienced in-class support teachers, 2 talented long-term sub and or leave replacement teachers, and knowledgeable daily substitutes providing consistent and conscientious coverage at a moment's notice. This is a people-based profession, and organizational capacity is an important consideration for every school. Our department has a nice balance of traditional teacher preparation versus alternate route candidates entering the classroom with various STEM-related work experiences. You'll hear and see more on this later, but as we build out our dual enrollment course offerings, specific advanced degrees are required. And at this point, we have 3 qualified teachers to offer dual credit in our computer science courses and 3 teachers who are approved for dual credit in mathematics. Another important highlight as we look for role models is within our computer science teachers, we have 3 female teachers and 1 male teacher, and that trend continues into our math classrooms as well. In terms of hiring, we've been very lucky. We look to hire excellent candidates despite candidate pools being markedly smaller in recent hiring cycles. I wanted to give an overview of our student enrollment. So in terms of our department, we're responsible for almost 2,700 student enrollments. In every one of these enrollments, 2,691 to be specific, matters to our math team. We are working hard, harder than ever, to create positive learning outcomes and successful learning outcomes, positive learning experiences and successful learning outcomes for these students. The pie chart on the left shows that we're quite balanced across year of graduation. Despite differences in class sizes, we still find balance and break out pretty evenly. I think the junior class might have a slight bulge there due to the popularity of our SAT prep course, which is usually taken in the 11th grade. The chart on the right begins to split out our enrollment by subject area, and at the top of the chart, I'd like you to note the computer science courses and our SAT prep courses. They are 6% and 5% of our overall enrollment, and that translates to 165 students taking a computer science course. We do hope that this continues to grow, and we're intentional about looking to grow that, and also 116 students enrolled in SAT. The pie chart also includes some summer course enrollments that have already taken place, but we're glad to have summer school back in session. 57% of the enrollments I will refer to as our core coursework. That's grabbing Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 and kind of pulling that together and considering that core. Pre-calculus and calculus make up another quarter. and then the 17% from the other elective coursework, some of which I've mentioned: computer science, the SAT prep, and the other includes 2 specific courses, number systems and discrete math. These are important courses usually taken in 12th grade. I'll talk more about these courses just a little later. What is also represented and embedded in this chart is 28 courses, 140 plus different sections or classes, 4 different program levels, students with various career aspirations, competencies, and passions, and students of various races, ethnicities, and backgrounds. And we are very intentional about monitoring our various subgroups and look to be responsive to any disproportionality we find. By the numbers, the table on the left supports the chart on the right, and I'm continuing to slice our course enrollment. You can see the general progression taking shape from left to right in terms of pathways: Algebra 1, Algebra or Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus. In the table, a dash is representing a population less than 10 students, but a 0 is indeed a 0. I really wanted this to offer you an overview and a lens into which students are taking what courses. It's important that we find our students where they are. Looking at the red in the graph, there's roughly twice as many freshmen taking Algebra 1 versus Algebra 2. Looking at the brown, it doesn't look brown on the TV, but next, clearly most geometry students are in 10th grade, and if you look to the geometry on the horizontal axis, you'll see our 10th grade students there in brown. You're looking at green and blue, there are equal numbers of 11th and 12th graders accessing pre-calculus. SAT prep is almost always taken in junior year. I mentioned that, no surprise there, on our way to college. And statistics is usually taken in the senior year. Something I'm particularly proud to point out is that our computer science has good representation across all grade levels. It's quite well balanced, and intentionally so. We try to allow our computer science to be accessible by all and intentionally accessible throughout a student's 4-year plan. Our expanded curriculum offers many pathways. It meets and exceeds state requirements, adheres to state standards, it's anchored in state code, and we really want this to be a launching pad to great things. We'd like to ensure that it's accessible. We'd like to accommodate acceleration, allow for math growth spurts. We'd like to be flexible and get students in the right place, which mostly means math at the right pace. And we want to build continuity that allows students to successfully scaffold their knowledge along the way. We'd like our students to be successfully challenged by this curriculum with rigor without feeling overwhelmed or burdened, making concepts available but staying within the locus of control, offering many flexible pathways. Here's a curriculum progression a little bit siloed. Student progress would go left to right, and in the next pair of slides I'm trying to slice it, the curriculum by both course and then by grade. With the caveat that students start in different places, I'd like to highlight the various program levels that we offer. As you move down a column, the breadth and depth of coverage are increasing. This translates into pacing and complexity of problem solving. The core coursework is in bold, so I've tried to indicate that for you as well. So, for example, a student in 304 is learning prerequisite skills but not quite entered into the core, and students who move beyond Algebra 2 are no longer in a tested subject area. They're outside of the core. These courses are still important for competitive college admission. The yellow highlights indicates where students could complete coursework for college credit. And I'm pleased to show that number systems, a course that I mentioned before but I'm returning back to, is a course that you can take. I've put it in the pre-calculus bucket. It's not quite technically, but equivalent to. And that's a course that allows a student to earn dual credit at RVCC. Recent this year is a chance for pre-calculus students to earn dual credit with our partner. And you'll notice that AP Computer Science Principles, I apologize for the condensed abbreviation, CSP, Computer Science Principles, and followed by Computer Science, AP Computer Science, have similar designations. And AP in general can be recognized by colleges with sufficient score on the AP test. And so you'll notice in the calculus column as well and the statistics column. The data science coursework is generally available after Algebra 1, as mentioned. A second view is by grade, and here you'll see our grade levels and some supporting percentages. Again, I'm giving a flavor of who is where. And if you'll look at our 9th grade enrollments, there are 585 students in 9th grade. The next column, 670 in 10th grade, 768 in our junior year. That's our highest. And then an exact match in 12th grade, back to the 670 mark that was there in 10th grade. Our core courses that lay the foundations start to diminish. First at 82%. Again, I'm just bundling the red ink. 82%, 72% as you move across the page. 50% of our juniors still working on core, and 14% of our seniors. You'll also notice that calculus, 30% of our senior classes enrolled in a calculus course. If you'll go back to 11th grade, there are almost 9% involved in calculus and 1% in statistics. And there's that even balance of computer science in the purple below with the SAT at 14% for our junior class as well. In terms of our department, we believe a team approach is a successful approach, and along the left, we work in PLCs, strategically, PLCs, professional learning communities. We generally organize by math coursework, occasionally other representations as well. For example, our computer science teachers met recently outside of their math to develop a plan for Computer Science Week just recently and Hour of Code. Teams are important to us. They allow us to plan. They allow us to monitor pacing and calibrate. And we're beginning to examine data together as well. Teams are also important to look at new policies, develop expertise, provide feedback, and find out what is working best. And in terms of some of our successes, we've mitigated failure with credit completion throughout the summer, actually 2 summers. We've supported struggling learners in the spring with after-school virtual tutorials known as STARS tutorials. This summer in August, we were particularly excited to roll out Ignite review sessions that occurred on Tuesday and Thursday nights virtually, available to students, and again, remote review sessions throughout August that were getting students ready for the school year. And as we become more data rich, we expect to use data to inform decisions. Also excited to return to our Summer Institute and in-person learning with our Summer Academy, where we were able to provide credit for students who may have struggled and or accelerate with us as well. Our 2021 priorities are to get back to in-person learning, forming those relationships that we know are so vital to powerful learning. We're excited to be able to offer assessment in controlled environments as well. want to nurture. We believe a math mindset is a growth mindset. This is something we want to cultivate, and we want to move students from, I'll never be able to do this to I can do this, or I hate making mistakes to mistakes help me learn, and I'm either good at it or I'm not, to I'm not good at it just quite yet, but I'll get there. In terms of our use of data, I feel like there's so much data and so little time. We have been training in IXL and Linkit. You'll hear more about those data dashboards shortly. But we are also looking forward to time to interact with that data and time to consider the questions to ask of the data. These dashboards are relatively new to us, but we hope to explore support and remediation. We hope to explore acceleration pathways, and we hope to explore disproportionality. The data has the potential of being multidimensional. We're hopeful to find our best indicators that either correlate and ideally become predictive in terms of student success. We are implementing grading practices, acknowledging the power of a double feedback loop and a chance for a student to revisit work and demonstrate proficiency that may have not been demonstrated in a particular time frame. We're also trying to be flexibility. Flexibility has been the name of the game for us in education for the last year and a half, and we know that balance is so important, and as well as student wellness. If you were visiting our classrooms this year, you would notice more intention to brain breaks, more intention to guided practice. I do, we do, you do. More intentional about student reflection as well, allocating time to complete this in class, using prompts to focus on students on their own learning behaviors that support deeper learning. What did you do today? What did you learn looking back on the unit, etc.? That reflection piece that's so important to teaching and learning. We are also looking to expand our dual credit, potentially into calculus and other math classrooms. I feel like I'm always on the phone with Ms. Cangelosi-Hyde and the RBC coordinator in our efforts to expand dual credit and opportunities for Hunterdon Central students. Sitting in a high school classroom and earning college credit is a very, very exciting proposition. And we're also looking to expand computer science. Last year, we introduced a new course called Internet of Things. And this year, we have our eyes set on cybersecurity. Not quite there yet, but hoping to get there soon. The next part of the presentation is going to focus on our data dashboards, of which there are 3. We use these dashboards hoping to incorporate data and monitor and measure disproportionality. The first up is Start Strong, and I know that you've seen some of this reported, but I'm breaking this out across math levels in this case. This slide accounts for 330 Algebra 1 students. I'm back to my shorthand, and I apologize for that. 312 is STEM, so red would be STEM level, brown would be CP level, and the green would be our academic level. And what I want you to notice, and this doesn't look great off the top, I do want to continue to talk through it, is that this suggests particularly a lens on our 9th graders. And so, it suggests that strong support, and I apologize for the color not appearing on the monitor with as much contrast as I would prefer. And strong support, I want to pull your attention to in our Algebra 2 CP, that's the light blue on the screen, and 9th grade, that marker, the largest, would be about 100 students there. Correlating against course averages this fall, we don't see that this is the terrible news, and I will talk more about the merits of Start Strong. Looking at geometry, Red would be our honors. There are 4 levels there. The honors is red. That wasn't available on the Algebra 1 screen, but then followed by STEM. 323 is known as CP, and 324 would be our academic level. And what you'll notice in geometry is a marked increase where we're looking at strong support may be needed. I need to emphasize that. And with our CP numbers in that bucket is about 65. If I take the STEM and the CP and strong support, that's about 76 students. The learning standards for geometry went back to 8th grade. The Start Strong did not. There's not really a correlation between Algebra 1 and geometry, so that's why the Start Strong falls back to the grade 8 standards that are pertaining to geometry rather than Algebra 1. The next slide presents you with Start Strong data for Algebra 2, again by level. Here you'll see 9th graders that were taking honors Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 STEM, maybe needing less support, and then the strong support category would be CP, and this again is better news in that Algebra 2 STEM and Algebra 2 CP has about 44 students that are indicating that strong support may be necessary. I've left academic off of that list for a reason. In conclusion, I think that we should be considering using Start Strong as a traffic light. Its greatest value, I believe, is as a watch list. We are not noticing that the numbers that are associated with possibly needing strong support are turning out into course failure through the fall. We're monitoring carefully, and we'll use Start Strong along with other indicators to continue to look for intervention strategies. Start Strong is not particularly useful in identifying skills gaps. It's not particularly actionable or operational in that regard. It does not lead to specific targets by standard, skill, or topic. It does inform support and intervention at a most general level, and it has certainly confirmed the need for universal supports, what we refer to as Tier 1 RTI. These supports include guided practice, supporting productive struggle, modeling, visual representation, manipulations, and collecting evidence of student learning. I'm going to move on to a second dashboard. That's Linkit. Linkit provides us with an awful lot of data. That's what it looks like on the left for real. I've accumulated, and now this time, this is not quantity information, this is now percentages. And these percentages are similar to how the NJSLA gets reported, where you'll notice that we have 2 large categories, primarily with data in either partially meeting or approaching. This was administered in fall of 2021. The math department was the first to test. And you'll notice that Algebra 1 has a low sample size. I'm going to go to the next screen because I do break out that table into visual representation. The yellow on that screen is partially meeting, and the lighter yellow is approaching. Algebra 1 has a low representation because our 9th graders were exempted from Form A due to their participation in the PSAT 9. We do intend for them to take Form B, and I will talk more about Form A, B, and C, particularly together. The algebra students that you're seeing in this report are mostly 10th graders taking Algebra 1, and these are reports My apologies, I lost my place. Unlike the Start Strong, we are starting to get some directionals from Linkit Form A. And what I'd like you to notice is for Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2, I've indicated the number of test takers as well as some of the areas where it suggests that we might need to look for support. Linkit does break down standards into topics and skill levels, and we're able to drill down to see that. One of the standards is seeing structure in expressions, and as for an example, that breaks into the topics of reasoning with equations and inequalities, interpreting categorical and quantitative data, and arithmetic with polynomials and rational expressions. The approach to assessment data, and so some weaknesses. If I were to describe Algebra 1, we're looking at solving quadratics, inequalities, systems of equations, polynomial operations. In geometry, the use of trigonometric ratios, similarity, right triangles, and then proving theorems about triangles. And lastly, in Algebra 2, factoring polynomials using data from sample survey and probability. Now, the thing about Linkit and its approach to offering the Form A, Form B, and Form C is that our curriculum has not quite caught up to it. So Form A is going to be very useful in establishing a baseline for us so that we can look back in a rearview mirror. And I am expecting that the partial and approaching will move as the curriculum comes to our students. Form B is not a test that differs from Form A and is given in the mid-year and then another slice towards the end of the year. I have a marker that will show you that information as well. Linkit's a very powerful data dashboard. It is accessible by many stakeholders. It allows us to drill down by class, by student. It provides an item analysis and also a grouping feature that allows us that automatically helps us with finding students that would be in a similar group, and that will help us with differentiation. I can see teachers' data, teachers can see student data, and I believe that there's some promise in here. On this page, one of the key aspects of data and any data dashboard is its ability to handle multiple sources. And so I just threw some red arrows on there. That wouldn't be part of the screenshot. And what you can see is that there's a chance to see both in the same panel a geometry Linkit and then also the geometry Start Strong. So now we have multiple markers that might start to indicate action that might be helpful in terms of looking at supports and interventions. In the future, I do think that it might be that we'll move towards common assessments appearing within Linkit as well, and not just relying on Form A, B, and C. Our own assessments and benchmarks would be curriculum specific and may be helpful for us diagnosing problems immediately, as opposed to, for instance, the statistics unit that did not score well in Algebra 2. They are spring units. So, I would be expecting to see improvement there as we move through them in the spring, where they would be first seen in Form C. Another dashboard that I'd like to talk about as well, and I believe it has powerful promise for us, is IXL. IXL is quite popular, piloted in the spring of 2021. Who pilots new technology in the middle of COVID disruption? We do. Several full department trainings were taking place in the spring of 2021. We purchased this program, and we were recently trained in November. Upcoming training again in February. But It does support students with learning plans and allows us to extend learning. To date, we've answered about 100,000 questions, and we're continuing to learn how best to apply and use this tool in addition to the skill plans that can be created by the teacher for the student. It also offers diagnostic and analysis as well. And it's the kind of program that gets calibrated where difficulty level starts to increase. If a student gets a problem right, the next problem that's presented to them has an algorithm associated with it, and they develop a SMART score over time. And we are hoping to dig in and look at those diagnostic and analytic tools as well. Now, there's a lot of dashboards that we've talked about. And this is a graphic that I'm particularly proud of that kind of marks our dashboards over time. You see in September, that's where we took the New Jersey Start Strong, and that's a one and done. It's a rather unique test. It does not have any longitudinal data associated with it. I'm not sure it will be given again. Whereas if you'll look down the page, and in keeping with New Jersey metrics, there's a row for NJ GPA, a graduation proficiency assessment, and also the NJ SLA. At this point, we believe both of those tests will be with us in early spring, March, and then into spring. And so I'm imagining that they will produce the data that New Jersey Start Strong was in the fall, but with the added benefit of some more drilling down and getting useful data, and not just the traffic light, green, less, some, or strong support in terms of metrics. Linkit will be offered, as I mentioned, with Form A, B, and C at various times throughout the year. The test remains the same. Our curriculum evolves. As students see more of the curriculum, we're expecting that those rows, those columns that would move from partial or approaching to move us into bubble, meeting, and exceeding. The PSAT is new to us. I'm really looking forward to what that has to offer. Recently in a meeting, I saw some of the math components that can be pulled out, and I am hoping to dive into that a little bit more. There might be some promise in there for our students, and particularly longitudinal over time. We're very interested in finding assessments that allow us to identify and predict success for a student and move them forward in their math learning. Course specific has a few more metrics to it, and this would be our assessments. The larger blue triangles on that row would represent a final exam, midterm exam, or a final exam that's pinned to the curriculum. And of course, IXL, again, has the promise of kind of fitting in and filling in gaps where needed, and also being used as metrics. I let that extend past June because we are hoping that we can assign summer work. Students can log in with their Google single sign-on and continue to be working and practicing their skills throughout the summer so that there's readiness for the fall. And I think there's work to do in terms of us identifying and pointing students towards those skills, coupled with maybe our continuing the Ignite program, which I believe was successful as well. I'm going to move to support in interventions now. Done with data dashboards, and I'd just like to highlight 3 items. First, our math lab. Our math lab takes place now in this beautiful building, our renovated IMC. It's basically walk-up math help, linked to study halls or study skills classes. It's also available to an early in or out student should they want to stay with us and get math help before they head on out. It's staffed by a teacher all of our classroom teachers, highly qualified and certified staff, and it's not restricted to just our core courses. So it's really a chance to get math help. This is where we'd offer homework help, maybe review concepts ahead of a test or a quiz. Sometimes a classroom teacher will know that a test wasn't taken, so we'll use it to as a way to efficiently develop our makeup work as well. And it may indeed be used to support our portfolio appeals process. And I'd like to recognize the teachers are doing that. There are 8 blocks, 6 of which are covered. That's Miss Mulvihill, Mrs. Ward, Mr. Kusick, Ms. Kraus, Mrs. Singh, and Mr. Kufel. All outstanding teachers, all highly diverse in terms of the different subjects that a student would be able to show up to and get help with. That's here. And we are kind of floating right now. We haven't found our exact spot. We used to have a sign, Math Lab, but now it's a check-in at the front desk, and teacher will be available. The second intervention, a more powerful intentional intervention, is something called response to intervention. This is commonly known as a multi-tier support system, an MTSS. And this is where we offer push in and pull out help. I did mention Tier 1 before as universal supports. And so as the triangle might indicate there, that's from the state of New Jersey, about 80 or 85% of our students will be in Tier 1, which just means that they're in a classroom with a good teacher, great teacher, and those supports are universal to all the learners in that. Where we see a student that's struggling, perhaps through Start Strong, or perhaps through grade performance, or perhaps a teacher recommending, we would push in another highly qualified teacher into that classroom and or pull students out. This is a fluid program, so if you're identified as a Tier 2 student and recommended for that level of support, it doesn't mean you stay with that support for the rest of the year. Tier 2 can move to Tier 3. That would be increasing the intervention and the intensity of the intervention, either by meetings, meeting more frequently, or for longer duration. This does only apply to our core coursework, and the math department and counseling will use this strategically for our struggling learners. What we look for there is a student with maybe low academic performance, underachievement, but also kind of high student effort. And so the teachers that are involved there, again, 6 of them, Mrs. Singh, Mr. Cole, there's some repeats there, right? Mrs. Schiff, Mrs. Terlinden, who also serves as our RTI coordinator, Mr. Kusick, and Mrs. Bajak as well. The flex block, what we've been doing is having a teacher kind of wrap around where they have another prep. They're able to move to that location and serve the students who may need the help in, say, Block 1A on one day versus Block 4A. I believe it's Mrs. Schiff, or no, it's Mrs. Singh that does that. So 1A and 2A are kind of a shift together. We'll take care of the scheduling, but a very important intervention as well, RTI. And then finally, oh yes, and about 50 students currently identified in RTI, and some moving from credit completion. So those students who were potentially at risk and struggled through the summer struggled to complete on time in June and extended into the summer. They immediately went on an RTI list. This year, RTI started almost immediately in September, whereas in other years, it takes us a while to identify. So I'm particularly proud of that. And then lastly, a very unique opportunity for both the person receiving the tutoring, but also the person giving the tutoring as well, is our peer tutoring process. An email to mathtutor@hcrhs.org puts the ball in motion. We're receiving about 10 inquiries per week from student or parent. It's a list that gets monitored daily. And what we'll also do this year is solicit feedback at various intervals and communicate back to the classroom teacher as well. This is all taking place through our Math Honor Society, Mu Alpha Theta, and kudos to the advisor. I'm thinking first name. Ms. Koval, thank you very much, Mr. Brandt. And a testament to the power of mentorship, I've told an anecdotal story where I watched a first matchup happen between older student and younger student. I don't know the subject area, and just even negotiating the schedule and deciding how when the availability was already a positive experience in terms of the social interaction between those two students, not to mention leveraging then the academic supports that might be available as well. I'll end with just two metrics for peer tutoring. The first shows our peer tutoring program. There are currently 65 students enrolled there by course. This is a slice by course. Some students are peer tutored in multiple subjects, so the numbers on these two slides don't quite match up. But you'll notice geometry is where we have our most assignments currently, followed by Algebra 2 and Algebra 1. We do offer peer tutoring to our pre-calculus and calculus students as well. And then last slide, another slice of peer tutoring, this time by academic level, and you'll notice that CP is well represented there. That's important to me because CP was where we had some larger, taller lines on our graphs as well. So I suspect that there's some help that's being offered through this program as well. At this point, this concludes my presentation. I'm very proud of the math department and the hard work of the members of the department. And I know that I'm confident in our capacity to deliver successful outcomes, learning outcomes, and I know that we'll get better in our use of data over time. Thank you very much.